Hey everybody, I'm Todd and I hope you're having a great day. Today I'm going to take a look at a very popular set of planar magnetic headphones. They're the HIFIMAN Sundara. Now, without getting very technical, the more distributed physical design of planar magnetic headphones is supposed to address a number of the issues we have with dynamic drivers as we try to reproduce a full range of frequencies. You'll see they're typically a lot more extended response, but also they claim to be a little bit smoother or more even response as well, with less harmonic distortion. Now, all the recordings in this review are going to be made through my binaural microphone. I recommend you wear the best headphones you have or listen on studio monitors. And of course, you're listening for the difference between the original recordings and the recordings made through the headphones, and try and get an idea of any kind of coloration and effect on the sound that we're going to get. Now, taking a look at the logarithmic analysis of the sine sweep, we can see that there are a few bumps and dips in between kind of the 6K range up to about 16K. But when we switch over to the linear analysis, the extra resolution also shows a dip around 2K. It's not large, but it's there, and a more significant bump at 6K and dip at 10K. So we're going to keep an eye on those frequencies as we do the other tests. Now, listening back to the recording through the Sundara, I can say that I could hear that slight reduction in that 2K range and the bump around 6K. The 10K dip, for me, actually just made the headphones sound a little warmer than the original recording, so I could hear it there. Now, when we look at the graphs here, it's a very subtle difference in the 2 and 6K range. That 10K range and also a little bump after that is a lot more evident. And when we go to the extra resolution of the linear analysis, we can see those there as well. Of course, the sound is really what matters. Overall, I'm going to say it was a pretty reasonable representation of the original recording, just with a slightly warmer sound and perhaps a slight reduction in the emphasis there again in that sort of 2K frequency range. Now, looking at the comparative graph, first on the logarithmic basis, we can see there's a bit of a roll-off below 100 Hz in frequencies here. Now, nothing severe. These headphones actually do a reasonable job of representing bass and even sub-bass, in my opinion. Not boosted, so it's not going to do anything to help you if you're working in EDM or hip-hop, but certainly you can hear those frequencies. Now, in the upper ranges here, again, 2K, 6K, 10K, and even 16K, there is deviations that are visible here on the logarithmic basis. When I switch over to the higher resolution on the linear graph, you can see them a little more clearly. But I would say that listening back to these headphones, there was nothing here that would be very problematic in learning them if you want to use them for a critical or reference listening application. And even applying a little bit of EQ to them might tighten up some of those ranges. You know, they're not really broad strokes here. There's just kind of a few frequencies where we see a few deviations. So overall, pretty reasonable comparison. Now, I've loaded the original recording up as a reference into iZotope's audio lens. That'll be the purple region here. And I'm going to play back the headphone recording, and that'll be the white dynamic line. And so watch and see how closely the headphones follow the profile of the original recording.
What about the world we both believed in? What about the word that made it so? What about the world we both believed in? What about the word that made it so?
You show me beauty in life. You put me first all the time. No wonder I'm on a high when I'm with you, oh yeah. You show me beauty in life. You put me first all the time. No wonder I'm on a high when I'm with you, oh yeah.
Now, listening back to the vocals was very interesting with these headphones. So on the male vocal, I didn't notice a lot of difference other than a little bit of an increase in clarity. Again, that's to my ears. You might hear it a little bit differently. When we look at the logarithmic graph, we can see that kind of bears out. It's not a whole lot of difference, but we do have that kind of boost around 6K that's quite visible. The 10K dip is not making as much of a difference on a male vocal. Linear analysis bears that out as well. Now, the female vocal, on the other hand, I thought was more impacted by these headphones. I could hear a change in the tone of the voice based largely on that slight dip in the 2K range, and yet there was still a clarity. However, some of the airiness seemed to be lost. So again, that's just to my ears. Looking at the graphs, of course, we can see that those frequencies are happening, but let me know in the comments if you heard it differently. And this is a sample of spoken words, so we can compare the sound of the recording directly versus the sound through the headphones. And this is a sample of spoken words, so we can compare the sound of the recording directly versus the sound through the headphones. Now for spoken word on my voice, again, I heard a little bit of a boost in clarity, but also sibilance. Now that's going to vary from person to person. We know that when we're going to DS, we're going to do it across a variety of frequency ranges, but that happens to be one that my voice certainly is active in for sibilance. Now in the logarithmic analysis, again, we can see that. Nothing really stark in terms of the lower frequencies here. It's really more, again, that 6K that stands out here. The 10K, again, not so much of an impact, I think, on my voice. Now, the linear analysis, again, the detail of it just shows us those ranges. But in the end, I would say they did a reasonable job of representing my voice, just knowing that the clarity is a little bit emphasized with these headphones. Now, planar magnetic headphones can be an option for gaming. As most of them are open back, like the Sundara, you have to realize that you're not going to have isolation from the room around you, but generally the good imaging and soundstage performance associated with this type of headphones ties in nicely with game audio. So let's listen to an example. Now, with the many hours of testing I've done on these headphones, that did include a fair amount of gaming, and I have to say I thought they performed very well. The positional awareness and detail was really suitable for use in many games, and the overall balance of sound was pleasing. Now, they are open back, so if you have a noisy environment, that's all going to change very quickly, but if that's not an issue, these could be a great option. They didn't get overly warm either. Their open back design helps with that. But they're not the lightest headphones, so if you're sensitive to that, that could be an issue. Although pressure on the head isn't too bad with these, actually. So overall, I would recommend them for gaming. I think they can do a really good job as long as you have the right environment to use them in. Now I'll talk a little bit about imaging and soundstage performance. First of all, imaging on the set that I have is excellent. There's a very good balance between the right and left channel. Group delay is really inaudible. I did measure some in the very low bass range, but really, again, nothing that's going to affect that performance. Now, there have been some comments from others online about inconsistencies in these headphones, particularly with levels and balance from one side to the other. I don't have a bunch of sets to try out, so I can't really speak to that. But again, the set that I have is very good. Now, when it comes to soundstage, these headphones give you a very big and wide open soundstage, but it's going to seem like it's coming from in your head, not from studio monitors mounted in front of you. And so that's going to be a little different experience for some of you, depending on what you're used to. But overall, again, on the set that I have, I'm going to say imaging and soundstage performance is very good on these headphones. Now we'll take a look at the build quality of these headphones. There's a combination of plastic and metal here, but where it counts, the metal construction is good, and it is aluminum, so they are trying to control the weight a little bit here. Now the cup size is quite large. There's plenty of room for your ears in here. You notice the pads have a combination of a cloth material as well as a faux leather on them. And again, they're easily replaceable here. Now they're very adjustable. You can pull them wide open here. Although I wouldn't say if you have a very large head that there's maybe as much extension as you'd like to have. They do have a fair amount of movement in and out though, so that's going to help with fit. Clamping force is fairly strong on these headphones, considering you don't get any isolation, but it definitely does make them consistent when you use them one time after the next. Now I'll point out here that there isn't any padding on the headband here, but I didn't find there to be any discomfort wearing them for a long time. So, the clamping force is really preventing a lot of weight from resting on the top of your head. Now, the cable is a 3.5 millimeter that plugs into each side. It's a Y-style cable. These are not locking, but they do fit quite snugly, so I don't worry about them coming out too much. Now, the cable itself is quite soft. It feels quite nice in terms of when you move around. It doesn't catch on your clothes. There's not a lot of microphonics or anything that I found here, certainly. It has a right angle connector on the side, and it does come with a 6.3 millimeter jack adapter, but the cable is very short. It's around 5 feet, 1.8 meters, so you may find yourself getting an extension or replacing it. So just a couple things to keep in mind. Overall, in this price point, I think you get quite a bit here for the build. Now, I'll highlight a few features and specifications. These are, of course, a planar magnetic headphone with an open-back design. Now, they have a very wide frequency response of 6 Hz all the way up to 75 kilohertz, so it's going to cover anything and more that you would need here. I will note that they're fairly easy to drive even with mobile devices, but if you want to use them for a really high-quality reference or high-res listening, they do benefit from a headphone amplifier, as most planar magnetics do. Now, they're not the lightest headphones, but I didn't find them uncomfortable that way. And I'll also note that the cable is rather short, and that's going to be an issue for you in a lot of cases, so you may need to get an extension or a replacement cable. And so now that I have a lot of hours on these headphones and done some tests, I'll give you my final thoughts. First of all, at the time of recording, these headphones are available for about $300 on sale. They normally range up to about $400 at regular price, and I've seen them as low as $200, especially if there's like an open box deal. So it's not surprising that they're a very popular entry point into planar magnetic headphones. Certainly there are a few lower priced options, but for the target market that planar magnetics are really going after, $300 is really kind of an opening price point. Now for that price range, I think they actually perform quite well. They have a lot of the benefits of most planar magnetic headphones with very few drawbacks to this particular design. And they do address some of the issues many dynamic drivers have, although again, we have many great dynamic headphone options. Now, I found them to be a very versatile headphone. I think you could use them for a lot of applications. If you want to use them for mixing application, absolutely. General listening, high-res listening, yes. Game audio if you have the right environment as well. Isolation is very poor on these headphones. They let everything in, so you're really not going to want to use these too much where bleed is going to be an issue. So just to keep that in mind. But overall, I'm going to say in this price range, if you're looking to get into your first set of planar magnetic headphones, these are definitely worth taking a look at. And if you want to look at some other options for headphones, check out one of the videos on the screen. As always, I do really appreciate you joining me, and I will see you next time.